Hi class, it's D, and today I'll be talking to you about social anxiety disorder and the actual definition, the official symptoms, a few theories, and I will transition into my case study towards the end. One thing I want to point out today is that the actual social anxiety was originally known as social phobia. During this social phobia, we think of phobias, we think of people experiencing all different type of anxieties. You have some who experience fear of heights, fear of falling, fear of snakes, fear of spiders. We even have some people who display homophobia, fear of homosexuals. But another popular fear that we often hear people complain about is fear of public speaking. Fear of public speaking is actually under the bracket of social anxiety or social phobias. And so what I want to talk to you about is what exactly is the definition of social anxiety? How is it different from shyness? We all know different people in our lives who may display the personality temperament of being shy. Maybe you're shy. For myself, I've always dealt with being a little bit more timid and shy than my fellow peers. But usually when a person or a child is shy, with the right support, given just enough amount of time to warm up, to become familiar with their surroundings, to become familiar with those that they don't know. They typically come out of their shell, so to speak, and they find themselves able to intermingle, or they find themselves able to overcome whatever obstacle it is that is in their way, or whatever new challenge it is. And so a lot of times that is the main difference between shyness and social anxiety. When a person has social anxiety, they typically are frozen in fear. This is a persistent and intense level of fear that grips them and even causes some physiological symptoms to occur, and even some emotional or maladaptive thinking to actually occur. And this is the main difference between shyness and social anxiety. So some of the official symptoms would be excessive sweating, cold hands. Your hands just automatically just get cold because there's a restriction in your blood flow at that point. And then you also have dilated pupils, or you may have a dry mouth, or you may begin to stutter. Your speech just gets all wacky. Or you may actually experience feeling dizzy, feeling nauseous. We often associate that with butterflies in our stomach, but it's really some people really have that real symptom of feeling nauseous, and may be sick, in an event of extreme anxiety, as well as having bladder or bowel accidents. So these are all true symptoms of experiencing social anxiety or becoming extremely afraid when approached in a social setting. Now, when we talk about fear of speech, fear of public speaking, the DSM considers this an actual specific social phobia, which means that the person's main fear is associated with public speaking. However, when that fear grows and it intensifies and it becomes not just associated with one specific event or one specific presentation or anything like that, then it expands and it develops into a full-blown social anxiety disorder, which is considered a generalized social phobia. And this particularly means that the person is just terrified and fearful of most, if not all, social interactions. So that means it could be eating out in public causes anxiety. Obviously, meeting new people causes anxiety. Um, Sometimes it's even riding the bus, fearful that people are looking at you and going to be judging you. You know, a lot of college students experience this when going to school, and walking to a crowded auditorium, feeling like all eyes are on them, or that new job in orientation, feeling like, everybody's going to judge you more harshly because of who you are and because you're the new kid, or not feeling like you're going to fit in. So this disorder typically takes over a person's entire life, and it cripples them to the point to where their job performance is affected. If they're a college student, their school grade is affected, and their overall social interaction is affected. So they typically end up living their lives avoiding these type of social interactions. So the history of this goes all the way back to about the caveman era, when we first, hear about the fight and flight response, which is a natural reaction that our body automatically goes into when we sense that we are being threatened or in fear. And usually during this time, a large dose of adrenaline is immediately dispensed into our bloodstream, and it causes these physiological symptoms that I stated earlier, like the excessive sweating and, ready to run, ready to fight back, whatever the reaction seems to be appropriate at the time. Your body is giving you that extra strength to stand up and make those necessary judgment calls, whereas you may have not had that typical strength had you been calm and relaxed. So the same type of reaction that a person would typically get in a fight or flight situation is the same type of reactions that an individual gets when they are truly suffering from social anxiety disorder. It can eventually become very debilitating if they do not receive appropriate treatment. So a little bit about the history. Back, believe it or not, social identity has not always been identified as a disorder. It was not until the 1900s that the term was coined, social phobia, and at that point, it was just a term that was known, but there was not a whole lot of research actually done to actually bring forth an understanding of what social phobia really was. So in the late 1980s, Joseph Wolf, who actually helped with the African Army, came forth and began to coin his own therapy, which he called the systematic desensitization, which is basically when he had 3 steps that he would incorporate in a person's treatment plan. The first step is to gradually get them to be exposed to what they're fearing. So it was a slow but steady process of getting you to constantly step forward and to approach that thing that's causing you fear without having those same fearful responses. So a lot of times Wolf would allow the people to go at their own pace to eventually get to the point to where they were no longer showing anxiety towards that feared object or situation. The second point was literally to allow the person to learn how to relax their muscles, relax themselves. He stressed that when you learn how to relax your muscles, it's hard to be anxious and relaxed at the same time. So that was his second response, was to relax your muscles. And then the third response, or the third part of the treatment, was to build a hierarchy. What is your level of fear? And so you could start from the least to the greatest and constantly check things off your list on your levels of fear. And so that was his hierarchy. And once you completed those 3 levels, then he concluded that you were have passed and ready, and you were cured. This was typically for the soldiers who were in the army who may have been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, or who were suffering from different related anxiety disorders. But that was just the beginning of the evolution of doctors coming forth, doing more research and presenting more treatment plans for social anxiety as a whole. So it was not until 1984 that the DSM actually classified social phobia in the manual and actually gave it definition and reference. However, it took some years later in 1980 when the DSM coined social phobia, but it was not until 1994 that they actually made social anxiety disorder official in the DSM-4. So social anxiety has come a long way, and it is a disorder that has gotten some pioneers who have looked at it, who have dug with it, who have created different skills and treatments and perspectives so that individuals who are suffering with this disease can find further improvement. However, it is one of those disorders that was late in its development, and it was not until the 1990s that treatment was actually approved by the FDA. Medication, that is, medication treatment was approved by the FDA for specific anxiety disorders. So at this point, I will take you into my PowerPoint slide, give you a brief case scenario of Maria, who is a college student, and we will talk about some of the treatments that she can receive, the outcomes, the prognosis, and I hope you enjoy. God bless. So I would like to introduce you to Maria, who is 19 years old. She just graduated from high school. She was raised by both her mother and her father. She's the youngest out of two kids. She has an older brother, so typically she has always been treated as the baby girl and has been overprotected. She did exceptionally well in high school and received a scholarship to go to college out of state. And thus her mom and her entire family have been a huge support, but mom specifically has been very active in helping Maria take care of business as far as financial aid, school paper, meeting with the officials, making sure that everything was set up for the dormitory and as such. However, Maria has been very excited about the upcoming life as a college student. She looks forward to just this newfound freedom, this college atmosphere where she kind of has the opportunity to think for herself, make her own decisions, and she anticipates a life of new friendships, a liveliness at the dormitory, new learning environment, new study collaborations, the sports events, homecoming, extracurricular events, and even social events. Just the thought of being in an entirely new atmosphere is very exciting to Maria as a whole. So in daydreaming, she finally has the opportunity to make the first move, and upon the first semester, she actually attempts to migrate and to become immersed in the college culture. However, some things begin to change. Instead of Maria being excited about these new challenges and these new adventures, she begins to experience some extreme anxiety, from meeting with the advisor or her professor to fear and just persistent physiological symptoms when having to give a presentation. She's even experiencing, fear of being around new people. Maybe she's not going to be good enough. So therefore she avoids study groups. And, the whole roommate situation has not been as productive as she thought. And so a lot of times she finds herself just avoiding everybody altogether, because these symptoms have become debilitating to her overall educational performance. So some of the things that she's experiencing is she's experiencing like rapid heart rate and feeling clammy when having to do presentations or having to meet with the professor one-on-one. So she totally avoids those meetings. She sits far in the back of the class to avoid being called upon because she's experiencing extreme fear of embarrassment or humiliation. Maria has even gone as far as to wear headphones to avoid speaking to her classmates because the tension, the increased stress that she's not going to be good enough is starting to cripple her, and uh, her minor shyness has become so excessive that it is a bit extremity. And she is now beginning to fail her courses, as stated earlier, because she is unable to attend the study groups that are available to her. So the dread and the nausea, the rapid breathing is causing complete debilitating results in her school life. So the DSM-4 actually classifies Maria as being having social anxiety disorder if she proves to have the following symptoms. So that means that persistent fear of one or more social or performance situations in front of unfamiliar people, experience social anxiety every time confronted with the situation. So that means that every single time she has the same amount of anxiety, recognizes the fear is excessive. So the individual must recognize the fear is excessive, avoids the feared situation, and endures the situation with intense fear. So we see in Maria's case that a lot of times she's avoiding the situation because of the intense fear, and then when she does have to face the situation, the fear is still at the same level of intensity. So they must also experience extreme distress and functioning because of fear. Must have experienced the fear for more than 6 months. All right, so this was happening in the first semester, but unfortunately, it didn't get any better come the second semester. So it has been at least 6 months. And note, and not due to organic factors such as substance abuse or medical problems. And it is no better accounted for by another disorder, which means that it's not due to any organic functions such as substance abuse, and it cannot be blamed or transferred to any other disorder, whether it be medical or psychological. So at this point, we need to try to figure out what treatment options are going to be conducive for Maria at this point. So we have the cognitive approach. Now, Albert Ellis, who is a famous theorist, has the rational emotive therapy, which typically helps individuals confront their maladaptive way of thinking. So Maria's way of feeling like she's not good enough, they're not going to like me, so on and so forth. Albert says, I have a way that we can get past this. And so what he does, he issues homework for the individuals to challenge their perception. So Maria's misinterpretations will be challenged. She will have to conquer small milestones, whether it be to come to class and at least speak to two people, or whether it be to raise her hand in the middle of class and answer a question. These will be considered small milestones. These accomplishments allow her to be exposed to her irrational beliefs and allow her to see the results that she feels and allow her to feel the results of success and achievement. So this teaches her how to confront her illogical thinking and to realize that she can achieve. The only cons is that it's easy for a person to relapse if there's any disturbances in this therapeutic process. So it's very sensitive. The person has to be constantly motivated, or else they could fall back into their own timid and overwhelming sense of fear. Another approach is the behavioral approach, which has the exposure therapy and the social skills training. So the exposure therapy literally encourages the patient to face her fears. It's going to help her to gradually be exposed to that thing that she dreads. So perhaps it's just going out to a social function on campus, and just gradually go around and begin to mingle. This is going to be teaching her how to learn how to cope with the anxious symptoms and to practice some relaxation techniques. Practice the breathing, practice, staying relaxed, staying calm. The only cons is that the patient must be eased into this process. If it's too abrupt or too quick, we brought on it can cause panic, and the atmosphere must show genuine concern and support. So with the social skills training, it's very similar because it offers efficient techniques to improve the social skills. So those techniques are used such as modeling, showing the individual what proper social skills are, and then at that point the individual will mirror another person's example. And in doing so, rehearsing is then emphasized so that the new behaviors that have been modeled and that are being mirrored will become second nature. So the person has opportunity to try out these new behaviors in several different situations. What's been found is that as the person continually tries out these new behaviors, they, over a period of time, become much more comfortable with coping techniques, and they don't feel as vulnerable to the anxiety that they were once experiencing. So the insight is given on what is actually socially acceptable and what is not. So the person feels much more equipped to handle these intense situations, and as a result, many therapists see that the anxiety level goes way, way, way down. Now, in addition to the cognitive approach and the behavioral approach, we have the biological approach. The biological approach is when we actually talk about the medication. So we have the SSRIs, which is where we have the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which actually increase the amount of serotonin in the synapse by blocking the re-up pump from reabsorbing the chemicals. And so this is one of the first FDA approved medications for social anxiety that was approved in the 1990s. And we all know it as know its generic name as Paxil. Now, Paxil actually helps because it's been proven that when the serotonin is too low in an individual, then that is generally what causes them to develop anxiety disorder in the first place. So this SSRI actually prevents that immediate absorption that takes place naturally, and it allows the serotonin level to build up so the person doesn't have these side effects anymore. Then we also found out that the antidepressants typically work much better than the regular anti-anxiety medications. So along with this, we have the tricyclic antidepressants and the Mayos. But most importantly, living a healthier lifestyle can be most effective. So it's been said just to smile, or to eat healthy foods, or to take a run, or to meditate, maybe practice yoga, and to just learn breathing techniques are all positive ways in which they release chemicals into the body that literally help the parasympathetic system to cause the body to calm down and to dispense and take the power away from those adrenalines that have been rushed through the body during the time of threat. So overall, with all of these options, the prognosis for social anxiety behavior is quite good. As long as the individual, as long as Maria follows these specific directions of her doctor or her therapist. She must repeat and constantly practice the new concepts learned from the cognitive behavior therapies. She must constantly reinforce and bring rational thinking and beliefs to her mind and neglect all maladaptive thinking. And she must commit to the relaxation techniques and a healthy lifestyle so that her prognosis can continually go into a more healthy direction.